Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Single best idea. We'll be quick today. CPI report, lots of good bank earnings as well. Secretary Bessent in conversation with John Farrow, always interesting, particularly on tariffs. We had a really interesting and eclectic show. Barry Ritholtz joined, of course, out with his acclaimed book, How Not to Invest, and he went all Greek letters on us. He mentioned alpha and beta. There are different Greek letters that set up the dynamic of how a time series moves. Beta is your movement relative to a core index. If you have a beta under 1, you're not as moving as the SPX. If you have a beta over 1, you're moving more than the SPX, Standard & Poor's 500. Alpha is just making money. Here is Barry Ritholtz on not losing money.
Stock pickers, other than the handful, the half a dozen people we all know are household names, tend to underperform a broad index. So you can't get alpha if you're not at least starting with beta. So if you want to make the core of your portfolio a broad index, and then you want to decorate that tree with specific stocks or specific sectors, knock yourself out. But to strictly focus on picking stocks and guaranteeing that, hey, maybe this year I'll outperform, maybe this year I'll underperform, seems like an excessively risky strategy. Better to at least guarantee yourself what the market's going to give you. If you want to try and build on that, go ahead.
I'll editorialize off that brilliance from Barry Ritholtz. Another Greek letter's theta. Theta is for the time change, and of course that's the x-axis on any chart. The more out your investment is on theta, the less alpha you want to do. And what Barry's saying is on a 401k, figure out the index you like best, et cetera, and stick with it. There's a thing called R-squared, which we don't talk about in July, but the answer is get your basic investment in gear, and then you can comfortably do bolt-ons. Mr. Ritholtz suggesting you'll find alpha with quality investments wrapped around that foundational beta support. I'm exhausted after all of that. Never exhausted to talk to Gene Munster of Deepwater Asset Management. There's a whole different change coming on AI. I've really noticed it just in the last, say, 2 months, a more nuanced discussion. Munster on artificial intelligence.
It turns out that each of these models, with the exception of Llama is pretty weak. And so, but if you look at the other 4 primary models, they all have kind of different strengths. And so ultimately is that think of AI as more of like a personality, is that the world isn't going to be centered on one personality. We wouldn't want that. And so each of these models has a slightly different personality and slightly different strengths. And so that's what we are seeing is, if you're going to say what's like the best model, kind of putting everything all together, it's probably OpenAI, GPT today, and then Grok and Gemini kind of close behind.
Gene Munster there, as we get to the technology season, he was a little cautious here on the opportunities for Microsoft. I think that was a surprise of the interview. Look for that interview in its entirety out at Bloomberg.com. On our podcasts on Apple, on Spotify, and on YouTube podcasts. This is Single Best Idea.